Games next year, so we have a lot to celebrate. And I am so, I guess, fortunate. I know I look at the 23 years and think, we're now counting in decades, which is really scary. I feel a little bit dated, but I'm so fortunate to remain involved with the sport of gymnastics, with the Olympic movement, mostly as an analyst and commentator, which basically means I go to the Olympics every 4 years, and I call it work. But I love it, and every 4 years I watch these athletes as they march out onto the field of play, and I know what they're going through, what they're feeling, thinking, and it takes me right back to some of those incredible moments from my own career, the 1992 Olympics, the 1996 Games especially, I think, competing on home soil. I remember walking into the Georgia Dome that summer. 40,000 screaming people. I had never heard anything that loud. Flash bulbs going off like it's the 4th of July. You walked into this arena, the sea of red, white, and blue, and the audience chanting USA, and you felt that love and that support, and you also knew you better not leave without that gold medal. And by the end of the night, there we stood, the first ever women's gymnastics team to win Olympic gold for the United States of America, and it was incredible. It was truly a dream come true for all of us, and I know it's easy to look back, and I think we all do this in our lives, in our careers. We look back, we think about the good times and the highlights, the gold medal moments, but I do believe it's important to remind myself of the struggles along the way, the falls, the injuries, the moments where I just wanted to give up. Because it's in those moments, it's in the mistakes, the challenges, the failures, that I learned how important it is to get back up, to keep going, to rely on my team. I think the lessons that I learned through sport are probably some of the most important lessons that I've ever learned. They help me excel in gymnastics, certainly, but they help me every day. They help me running my company, motherhood, and certainly in my battle with cancer. And it's these lessons that make up what I like to call the gold medal mindset. And the great thing about this is that the gold medal mindset is something anyone can attain. I promise you don't have to wear leotards. You don't have to do cartwheels or swim like Michael Phelps, because the gold medal mindset really is just an attitude. It is an attitude of going out and winning the day, no matter what life or work throws at you. It's all about understanding that the things we do today, in this moment, matter. For me, I think some of the lessons that I turn to most often are those of goal setting and staying motivated, teamwork, certainly. I think goal setting is one of my favorites to talk about. Goal setting is such a critical component to achieving what we want, and it paves the way for change, growth, and improvement, and it helps us close the distance between where we are today and where we want to be tomorrow. Now, my coach, she used to pass out these index cards at the beginning of every season, and we had to write down our long-term goal. So, okay, what do you want to accomplish this year? And so I might write down, I want to compete at the state competition. And eventually I would write, I want to represent the United States at the Olympic Games. Well, that's all well and good. It's nice to have a dream, but how are you going to get there? So we had to turn that card over. We had to painstakingly write down all of those short-term goals, all of those things we needed to accomplish in order to get to that long-term goal. So if I wanted to make these dreams happen, if I wanted to qualify for states, I needed more difficulty in my routines, which meant I needed to get stronger, which meant more sit-ups and push-ups and leg lifts. Those were the things I could come in the gym and I could work on every day. Now, I think most of us in this room, we understand the importance of setting goals, right? You guys all know about long-term goals and short-term goals and SMART goals. We know all that. But I find the thing that's often left out of the goal-setting conversation is the importance of follow-through, right? Because it's not enough to know what we need to do. We also have to go out and do what we need to do if we want to be successful, right? So I often talk to athletes about the sparkly leotard moment. I don't expect you to know what that is. So the sparkly leotard moment is that day. It's that moment you put on your competition leotard. You get all spruced up, you go out, you get to compete in front of thousands of people that are all cheering you on. It is a great moment. It is fantastic. But I remind them that that's not necessarily the moment that matters most. Because usually the moment that matters most isn't that glamorous. It's not that exciting. In fact, the moment that matters most was probably back in that hot, sweaty, smelly, chalky gym, doing routine after routine after routine when nobody was watching. There were no cameras on you. I think it's important to remember that the magic happens in the work that we do each and every day. The work I did each day, I think, definitely kept me motivated along the way, and it paid off years down the road as I stood there on top of that Olympic platform with my teammates, the Magnificent Seven, as we received our gold medals, and that was just such an incredible night. I mean, standing up there, seeing the American flag being raised, hearing the sound of our national anthem, you just kind of want to soak it up for a little bit. It's a lot like this. You just kind of, I've worked really hard to get here. I'm going to spend as much time as possible, and then they do ask you to leave. So we are politely escorted off the stage, and it's a lot like this. You're kind of standing up there on a podium, you walk down the stairs, and my coach, Steve Nuno, the one yelling in the video, he did a lot of that. He met me at the bottom, and he gave me this big bear hug, and he took me by the shoulders, and he looked into my eyes, and he said, "Get focused, you have 3 more events to go." Yes, sir. But he was right. It's in the Olympics, it's really difficult for gymnastics. It can be up to a 2-week competition depending on what you've qualified for. And I had just finished the team competition, but I had also qualified for the all-around, where you compete on all 4 of the apparatus, the vault finals, and then the balance beam finals. So I was kind of just getting started. So a couple days later, I went into the all-around, and I was doing pretty well. I was in first place on the 3rd of 4 events when it happened. And even if you know nothing about gymnastics, you know in sports, stepping out of bounds, usually not that great of an idea. And that night, my heel went over the line on a tumbling pass by, I don't know, an inch, a mile, didn't really matter at that point. That one step cost me any chance of a medal that night. And I was devastated. Just heartbroken. Not that I ever think about it. But I was. It was a heartbreaking moment, and tears were shed for all the world to see. And then at one moment I realized, I'm going to have plenty of time to cry about this later. Right now I need to focus forward. I need to get back up, and I need to keep going. So I went into the vault competition a couple days after that, and I saluted the judge. I ran down that 70-foot runway fast as I could go. I hurdled onto the springboard, and I flew right over the top of the horse, landed flat on my backside in front of, again, the world. Yes, you can all relive that wonderful moment with the magic of YouTube. So there I was on my backside, and I just remember thinking, what happened? And then my next thought was that of fear. And I remember talking to my mother that night, and I just kind of vented to her, "Mom, I don't understand. I mean, first I step out of bounds, and I can even understand that a little bit because those things happen, but this vault, I've never missed this vault. Not in training, not in competition. I don't know what happened. And now, I've got one last chance to bring home a medal for my country. One last opportunity, the last 90 seconds of my entire Olympic career, and it all comes down to balance beam, 4 inches wide. The most feared event in all of gymnastics, and this is what I had to look forward to. I was terrified. What if I fall? What if I fail? What if I let everybody down? And she stopped me there, and she said, "Let me just ask you one question. Have you done the work at other competitions, at practice, leading up to this event? Have you done the work? And I said, absolutely. I mean, I don't always get it right, but I always give it my best. And she said, I know. And that's why I also know that you can walk into that arena, head held high, confident in the fact that no matter what happens next, you have done everything you could possibly do up to this point to get it right. And that's all you need to know. And then she also politely reminded me that I needed to appreciate the moment. I mean, how many other little girls out there would have loved to have taken my position, would have loved to compete at the Olympic Games? And so I thought about that all night, and when I went up that final night for beam competition, I saluted the judge for the last time of my Olympic career. I held my hands over the top of the beam for just a couple of extra seconds that night. I took an extra deep breath, and I knew that she was right, and I just wanted to enjoy the moment. I think that beam routine was probably the fastest 90 seconds of my entire life, and all of a sudden I was at the end of the beam, arms raised high, ready for the dismount, and I just said a little prayer, please God, just let me land on my feet tonight. And I hurtled toward the end of the beam, 1 twist, 2 flips, and when I felt my feet hit the floor, and I realized I was standing up, it was just the most amazing, amazing feeling. This mix of emotions, the joy, the excitement, and the relief, and I saw my coach jumping up and down on the sidelines, and I think I saluted the judge, but who knows at that point. I didn't know what the score was. I didn't know if there was a medal, what color it might be. I just wanted to live in that moment. If I'm ever in doubt about the importance of setting long-term and short-term goals, about getting back up after a fall, about believing in ourselves and what we can accomplish when we persevere, all I have to do is think of that moment. Sports teaches you great life lessons. It also teaches you about your body and what amazing things that it can do. Now, I will admit, and my coach will tell you, I was never the most talented girl in the gym. He'll say, hey, I wasn't the strongest or the most flexible or the most powerful, but I would outwork anyone. I was a workhorse. He would say, I would have the girls all do, 50 push-ups. She'd do 55. Run 10 laps, she'd do 12. He said for a while, I couldn't figure out if she was a really hard worker or if she just couldn't count. But I knew that that's what I had to do if I was going to succeed. And eventually I realized that it wasn't just about the conditioning and the routines. It was also about how I would fuel my body. It doesn't really matter how far you want to go if you don't put gas in the tank, right? And I admit that I was a very picky eater growing up, and I'm still, unfortunately, a pretty picky eater. In fact, my parents, my mother, still tells the spinach story at pretty much every holiday. The spinach story goes something like this. My mother slaved away, cooking all night long, and she served her lovely spinach dish for dinner. And she asked my brother, my sister, myself to just try it. Just try a bite. And so my sister and brother, they eventually got to it, and they ended up, leaving the table. They got dismissed, and there I was, still sitting. And my mother looked over, and she said, "Well, you'll keep sitting there until you try just one bite." That's all I'm asking. Now, I was a good kid. My mom would tell you, but I was a little stubborn. So when she said that, I processed it as challenge accepted. Yeah. And I sat there, and I think it was a couple hours later when my dad took pity on me, or maybe he just wanted to go to bed, I don't know, and finally said, "Bring me your plate, you're done." So I had won the battle, but it probably was not the best thing for me and my nutrition. And it was about that time that my parents started talking to my coaches about nutrition and how they could help support me. They knew how many hours I was training and all the hard work, and they wanted to make sure that I was fueling my body and that they were part of helping me. And my coach had mentioned this thing called Juice Plus. And it's fruits and vegetables, and my parents thought, all right, we'll try it. And so I did. and I utilized Juice Plus as part of my overall training efforts for many years. I think we talk about strength and flexibility. We talk about the mental aspects of gymnastics and sport. We recognize the importance of rest and recuperation to that overall training effort, and it's easy enough to cite the importance of good nutrition and how that affects our overall training and competitive goals. And I think I benefited greatly from Juice Plus over the years. However, when I retired from gymnastics at the ripe old age of 19, I think I lost some of that understanding, some of that focus on my health. I stopped taking care of my body, I think, in the way that I had as a gymnast. And it's not that I specifically and consciously decided to stop taking Juice Plus. It just kind of got lost in the shuffle and the change that was going on in my life. I went from gymnastics, where I had a very structured schedule. I had this built-in team and family and expectations, and then I stopped overnight. I moved away from home to go to college, and things were just different, and I wasn't focused on my health the way I had been and had become as an athlete. What I would learn years later was that I wasn't needing to fuel my body for competition anymore, but I did need to fuel my body for something so much more important. Now I was fueling my body for life. And in 2011, that became very clear. In 2011, everything changed for me. That January, I was diagnosed with a rare form of ovarian cancer. And it was pretty much out of the blue. I had gone, the previous fall, I had gone to a regular doctor's appointment, one that I actually had called up to cancel, but I didn't. I went on in, and it was at that appointment that my doctor found a baseball-sized cyst on my left ovary. And that spun into this whirlwind of tests and scans, and by January, I was having surgery to have the mass removed and finding out my diagnosis. And I think looking at my journey, I tend to break it down into phases. And I think that first phase was one of the most difficult, and I almost hesitate to say that because there's nothing easy about a cancer diagnosis or treatment. It is all challenging. It is all hard. But I think that first phase, when there's so many questions and so few answers, and there's that complete loss of control, you don't know what's going on. And here I had been this athlete, this top athlete for the better part of my life at that point. And I had grown to know everything about my body. I had to. I mean, my body was the tool that I used to quite literally become the best in the world at something. And now I had no idea what was going on. And it was frustrating, it was scary. And then after the diagnosis, I think mentally there was a shift for me. I went from this victim mentality where everything was just happening to me to reverting back to that competitive mentality I knew so well from sport. Now I knew the plan. We understood what we were dealing with. We understood the plan ahead, which included a pretty aggressive form of chemotherapy. But at least I knew what I could wake up and focus on each day. I could set some goals. I didn't really know where we would end up, but I could get up and have a focus for the day. And so I turned my focus to chemotherapy, and I was kind of gearing up. You give yourself these pep talks. Hey, you worked out 42 hours a week during training. You could do this. And so I told myself these things, and then the first week of chemotherapy happened, and it was a whole lot more challenging than I thought. In that first week, I couldn't keep down food or water, and I was put back in the hospital, hooked up to IVs. I went through, I don't know how many nausea medications, not one of them even fazed me. And I remember lying there that night. My husband had taken our 14-month-old son home to put him to bed, and I was just lying there thinking, I don't think I can do this. I don't know how to do this. And at that moment, a nurse walked in. And I can't tell you what she did or said. I just remember that moment because it suddenly all came flooding back, this idea of teamwork. And my faith is first and foremost, so I knew in the grand scheme of things I was not alone. But suddenly I realized how much support I truly had. Yes, the medical team, but not just the medical. It was friends, family, neighbors, people that were willing to pitch in and help out at every turn. And I think what I had to realize was that not only did I have this incredible team supporting me, but I was also a part of that team. And I needed to hold up my end as well. You never know when one word or one act in even the smallest of moments may give someone hope. You may give them the strength to carry on. That night and in the weeks after, I realized that it was important for me. If I could share my story and maybe help one person focus on their health by hearing that story, then that was a good thing. And it helped me get back up. It helped me to keep moving forward. Now, I know chemo is, I think, the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And anyone that's gone through it or has known someone that's gone through it knows how difficult it can be. And then also it doesn't get better overnight. Even when you finish treatment, you have those lingering effects, whether it's the neuropathy or the fatigue or the nausea, things that last. And I think after I finished my treatments, even though I of course continued to go in for my scans and doctor's appointments, we were so focused on making sure the cancer was gone that I didn't really talk about some of the other issues I was having. I didn't want to complain. But I was getting sick every 2 weeks. I constantly had a cold. I didn't have any kind of an appetite. I think I ate tomato and mozzarella salads. I ate a caprese salad morning, noon, and night for about a year because I just couldn't handle anything else. But the fact was my immune system simply wasn't keeping up. And I think part of that was also I wasn't getting the nutrition that I needed to support that. So I was in my doctor's office one day, this was just another checkup, and I was sitting in there waiting for him to come in, and I look over and there's a Juice Plus placard on his desk. Well, I've seen that. I know what that is. I took that when I was training. And so I asked him about it when he came in, and he shared with me some of the research and indicated that this might be something I want to get back on. Well, that weekend, I took my son to gymnastics class, to his little mommy and me class, and I walk in the gym. There's a Juice Plus poster on the wall. It's following me around. If this is not a sign, I don't know what is. And so I started taking it again. And yes, we can all go into the nitty-gritty of why Juice Plus is so good for our overall health, but I'm kind of preaching to the choir, I think. Aside from the research and all of the reasons why Juice Plus is good for us, I knew that it was beneficial to me during my training days. And I began to make another shift in my mentality, that I didn't need to just take care of my health when I was going for gold. I needed to take care of my health because I needed to be here for life. I think we all have hectic schedules, right? We have really hectic schedules, a million things to do, and we do our best to ensure that we're eating as healthy as possible most of the time. We try to squeeze in all of those servings of fruits and vegetables that we're supposed to get. We prepare them, we snack on them, we hide them in the other food that we cook. But the realities of life, with all of the realities of life, it can be almost impossible to truly get the job done. And so for me, Juice Plus is simply a way to fill the gaps. I do my best, but I know that I'm covered. What I love about Juice Plus is that it doesn't try to take the place of whole fruits and vegetables. It is a way for us to just make sure we're covered. It fills the gaps. Juice Plus keeps me from feeling too guilty or too stressed, especially when it comes to my kids' nutrition. I have a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old. And I think as parents, we want to do everything that we can to ensure our children are healthy and active. And I think childhood obesity is still a major concern in this country. And it's not about the number on the scale. It is about the devastating health issues that can follow these kids into adulthood, like cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. We have to get them thinking about health in a positive way. Now, my kids love the gummies. Oh, they love their Juice Plus gummies. And what I'm very fortunate that they're not quite as picky of eaters as I was. But I love beyond them enjoying the taste of the gummies, that we sit down and we read the packaging together. We read the back of it, and we've done this for years. We've looked at all the fruits and vegetables. We've had to Google a few of the vegetables that we weren't real familiar with. But when I go to cook something new, I go to cook a new vegetable, and they might be a little uncertain about whether or not they want to try it. I say, oh, well go look, that one's in your gummies. And they'll think about it. They'll be a little bit more open to trying it. I mean, I like the gummies. That vegetable's in the gummy, so how bad could it be, right? So it introduces not just, here, take this, it's good for you, but it opens up this dialogue about fruits and vegetables and why they're so good for us and how they affect our body. We also discuss protein and carbohydrates and how everything works together to help us be at our very best each day. I'm so fortunate to have benefited from Juice Plus for so many years. When you all share Juice Plus with folks, you're not only sharing the value of Juice Plus, but you are helping them take a step back and think about their health in the way that they might not otherwise do. You all get the amazing opportunity to help others make their health a priority. So please keep it up, and thank you for what you're doing each day. You never know when you might be talking with someone who is battling a health challenge of their own or any other obstacle in their life. And when you bring a positive attitude to the table, when you bring these options to the table, you also reinforce those ideas for yourself. I know that happens with me. When I talk about health, I do a little bit better with my own health. It just works to help everyone get better. Now, some of you may have gone through your own health battles. You might be going through one right now. And yet you are here. You are here, you live it every single day. You feel so passionate about the benefits of Juice Plus that you have actually made this your job. And I would say that for any of you listening, this is not a job, it is a lifestyle. So I encourage you to keep on doing what you're doing because you are making such a positive difference in the lives of others. And as we heard Janet say, and as we know, at Juice Plus, the mission is to make sure that we inspire healthy living around the world, and you all are doing just that each and every day. So keep up the great work, and thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be part of your Juice Plus family.